Hi everyone, we've got a pretty important topic today to cover. This is rent control. This is something that's going to be on the ballot in Massachusetts in November. Michelle was happy enough to sit down for one more video. She's done a little more research into it than I have. I'm still looking into it, trying to figure out the ramifications of it. So she's going to go over a little bit of it with us, and she's going to cover some of the pitfalls and whether or not it is a good idea or a bad idea, at least in my opinion and your opinion. You get to have your own opinion because that's why it's on the ballot. All right, so what is the actual question that's being put on the ballot?
So this, as you said, this question that will most likely show up as a yes or no ballot question in the November election is whether or not to impose a statewide rent control policy in Massachusetts. So what this would mean is that each year a landlord could only raise the rent on any of their units by the lesser of 5% or the consumer price index, which is a national measure of inflation. So what we've been seeing for the last few years is a CPI of about 2.5%, or where we've been trying to get inflation under 2%. So assuming that inflation like last year is about 2.5%, that is the most that a landlord could increase the rent each year going forward.
All right, so why are they trying to put through rent control?
So I don't think any of us would argue the fact that we've got a problem in Massachusetts with housing affordability, right? Whether you're buying or you're renting, homes are just extremely expensive and are just crippling a lot of renters, a lot of young people. I know I have one at home right now who would love to get into a rental in the next few years, but just can't even see how she could possibly do it.
Would she like to move out, or would you like her to move out?
It's unanimous. But yeah, it's a real problem, and we do need to fix it, and there are no easy answers. There are some different possible solutions, but the one that I think feels like an easy fix to people is let's just stop that rent from increasing.
So what are the pitfalls then? I mean, it sounds great.
Sounds great.
If rent is now going to be $2,000 a month instead of $22, then $24, then $26, then $28, then $3,200 a month. If they're locking in at $2,000 with a small increase, what are the pitfalls that they have to look for? I mean, as not just as an investor, but even as a renter.
Tenant. Exactly right. I mean, yes, if you're already in a rental and each year your rent has been coming up, I know a lot of people are telling me $150, $200 a month. It feels like a lot. It would certainly seem like a nice thing to suddenly be limited to a real small increase every year. So it sounds good. The problem is that high rents and high home prices are caused by a lack of supply. So we learned about in economics and school supply and demand. We have a constant demand for housing in Massachusetts. We have a lot of people and a lot of reasons that they want to live here, and we just don't have the supply. We haven't had it for years. We don't have enough housing, and that is what causes prices to increase. When a lot of people are competing for a limited item, the prices are going to rise. By imposing rent control, you really aren't addressing the actual problem, right? You're not causing more homes to be available. You're just limiting what can be charged for them. And one of the most likely side effects is that we're going to end up with less housing. So why is that? Number one is developers. Part of the supply of our housing is developers who are coming in and building apartment complexes. If they are going to be impacted in that they can't continue to raise rents in accordance with their costs and what's the market, they're going to stop developing. And we're already hearing about developers who are like, never mind, I'll go build somewhere else.
And what happens to the units that are already built? Like I know in North Andover, within the last 5 years, they built a giant complex. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's got to have 400 or 500 units in it. If they can't raise the rents to meet their costs, what are they going to do with that building?
Right.
My thought is they're going to turn it into condos.
Right.
And they're going to be higher priced condos, and you're going to have even fewer rentals. And now you're going to have 400, 500 fewer rentals just in North Andover alone. Yep,
so that's one of the. So first of all is builders not wanting to develop. Second is those who already own buildings, whether it's a big company or whether it's just someone who owns a 3-unit triple decker in Boston, they are going to be incentivized to convert those to condos and sell.
And I know a few builders. I know there was one in Tewksbury. He built 2 giant complexes, and he built them as rentals, but when he built them, he's like, I don't know if I want to do rentals, so he built them so it would be a very easy condo conversion. I guarantee he's going to turn that into condos like that, and he's going to sell them like hotcakes. And instead of having apartments renting out for $2,500 a month, those are going to be condos they're going to sell for $500,000, $600,000. And I guarantee the guy who's paying a $2,000 apartment rental cannot afford a $500,000 condo with the condo fee on top of it as well.
Right. So these are some of the problems. Builders not wanting to develop, people who already own units opting when they can to sell them. What if they're stuck? If they own them and they can't sell them or they don't want to sell them, we're encouraging what's known as a slumlord, right? So if you have a unit that's, let's say you're charging $2,500 a month, 2-bedroom unit, pretty average price. If you can only raise your rent by 2.5% next year, that's like $50 a month. So say $600 a year. Maybe you had to replace the stove for your tenant. So right there's any increases are offset. Did your insurance increase? Massachusetts, I believe the average increase is estimated about 15% in property insurance last year. Did your taxes increase? Probably. So now you're squeezed.
And they just changed the law on the taxes.
Yeah.
I know it's going to. They're saying it's really just Boston, but they can now raise your taxes by more than 2.5% in any town.
Okay.
Or that's another ballot initiative. I can't remember. I'll have to double check.
2.5.
But so they've either already passed it or they're going to be passing it into legislation. They want to increase, or the ability to increase your property tax by more than 2.5%. So if you can only bring your rent up 2.5%, but now all of a sudden the town increases your taxes by 5% or 10%, your profits are gone immediately.
Right. So if you're holding on to a property, you can be sure that you aren't going to want to invest more money into it.
Yeah.
You aren't going to want to, paint it or quickly respond to issues that come up.
But the money won't be there to do it.
Exactly. Right. You can't do it. Massachusetts is a little bit unique from the research I've been doing, in that a large percentage of our multifamily housing is owned by the small guy.
Yeah.
It's not owned by. I mean, there are some that are owned by big corporations, but a lot of our rental housing is 2, 3, 4 unit buildings that are owned by local people who are just trying to build a little bit of equity. They're not making all kinds of money. They don't have unlimited funds. So let's say I own a 2-family. I have tenants in both units. I have one tenant who's been in there 5, 6, 7, 8 years. They're a good tenant. They are easy to deal with. I've kept the increases low. I've increased it slightly, but I haven't done typical market rate increases because I like this tenant and I want them to stay. But I also haven't really done any improvements. I've fixed the necessary things, but I haven't done anything. Now that tenant leaves, what I would normally want to do is maybe go in and do a pretty nice renovation.
Yeah.
It's time to bring the kitchen up. It's time to do some major things. And then when I re-rent it to a new tenant, now I want to rent it at market rate for what the actual unit looks like. I can't do that. I'm still going to be stuck with $50 a month increase, so I'm not going to do that work.
So you're saying so even if the tenant moves out, and now the owner renovates, and let's say they spend 10 grand, 15 grand, new kitchen, new bathroom, redo the flooring and paint. Right. They can only raise the rent that same.
As the provision stands. Now, I did see that there is a way that a landlord might be able to apply and try to get approval from the state if they've done a really major renovation, because at that point it's almost So it's really a problem, and it's definitely not going to motivate.
I've done filings with the state and tried to get things done with the state, and it's, first off, it's not easy, and second off, you're as likely to fail as not fail.
Right.
So why would I even bother doing the work to then
You've already done the work at that point,
I've already done the work, so now I'm applying, I've done the work, and they're like, no, I'm sorry, you can only go up $50.
Right.
So I'm not even going to take that risk.
Right. So we have a lot of potential problems. Now, there are a couple of exemptions to this. One is new construction, and it's a 10-year exemption. So like you mentioned a complex in North Andover. Yeah. If someone came in maybe 3 years ago and built that, they've got another 7 years that company can continue to charge market rate rents.
So not 10 years from today, it's 10 years from the build?
10 years from the occupancy certificate. So from the build. At that point, I don't think we really know exactly what happens. Are they prohibited to, for years and years from any increases until things can catch up? Or do they, I assume they just have to go back to the lesser of the CPI or the 5% increase each year? The other exemption is an owner-occupied 2, 3, or 4 family property. So if I live in one unit and I have a tenant in the other unit, I'm exempt from this. I can continue with market rate increases.
So wouldn't it be easier to just make it easier for people to build?
Yes. Yes, it would. Now it's not necessarily easy, but those are the types of solutions that I think are going to make more sense. And there are lots of proposals. One of the MBTA law that a lot of people are somewhat familiar about, that in towns in Massachusetts that are close to the train line, the state has mandated that the zoning laws be relaxed, so that it's easier for me to maybe take a large single family and make it into 4 units, that type of thing. So that has the right intention. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right way or it's a perfect way to do it, but those are the types of changes, relaxing the zoning laws.
Now that law is what, 2, 3 years old at this point?
Yes, we still have some towns, including the one I live in, that have voted against it. But it is being implemented in most towns.
But again, so again, you're dealing with a bureaucracy, so things are moving very, very slowly. So even though that is I would say a better plan or a better option, something along those lines, it's still taking years for it to implement and years for it to work correctly. So again, if we go back to the guy who is renovating and trying to fix up the apartment and trying to move forward and increase his rent, we're talking 3 years just to get permits to build some of these properties in these towns. And that's not even happening. It's buildable land. It's land that should be developed, and the town just either doesn't want it or the neighbors don't want it, and you get people fighting it. So it's not happening. The same thing's going to happen with the state proving, oh, you've done such a great job, we're going to let you go up 4% instead of 2.5%.
And that general red tape is something that needs to be looked at as well. The permitting, speeding up the permitting process for developers. No simple answer, but these are all things that can help. And maybe rent control in some format, something that's a little bit less severe, is worth looking at in certain places. But just a statewide
because this is everything other than the owner-occupied units under 4.
And
everybody's going to fall into it, and new construction for a short period of time. But you can be, if you build a development like that, you could be looking. I'm not going to be turning a profit for 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
But after that 10 to 15 year period where I was breaking even, now I'm going to be making because rents have gone up.
Yeah.
And that's what they're looking to make their money 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road, or generational wealth off it, and that's going to disappear.
Yep. Now, as you may recall, Massachusetts had a rent control law.
Yeah, was it back in the 90s?
Yes, it was so it was specific to 3 places: Boston, Cambridge, and Brookline.
Yeah.
I don't know how many years it was in effect, but it was repealed by Massachusetts voters in a similar type of ballot question in 1994. So we have actually tried this in a limited scope, and it did fail. And what it produced was what we're afraid of: less housing and deteriorated housing.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. Like, I know they have a lot of rent control in New York. I know they have a lot of rent control out in California, and everywhere where I know they have it.
Right.
They have a lack of inventory. They have a lot of vacant properties. Like, a lot of landlords have decided, I'm just going to leave this building empty because I can't control the rent, but I can either get a tax break on it or I can turn it into storage. You're even reducing the inventory even more. So I know they're putting it on the ballot. Do they have an example of it ever working? I'm not aware of one.
Right. I read up a little bit on, California does have something, although it's less severe. I think it's 5% plus the CPI. So it is a higher amount that can be charged. New York, and I think San Francisco, or maybe a few other cities, they have it limited. They have it on older housing, whereas it's not an issue with newer housing, but it's in a more limited capacity. And a lot of studies have shown that it has not it's helped tenants that are already in place maybe to stay where they are and not see big increases. But it has not in general been proven to increase affordability, produce more housing.
So maybe something that might have worked then would be, you can't increase the rent by more than inflation plus property tax and insurance costs. So if those go up by 1,000, you can increase the rent by 1,000 plus the 2.5%, so that your profit margin, potentially stays the same.
Perhaps.
But once that tenant moves out, you should be able to go to whatever market rate is right then and there. And if I've created a luxury apartment, I should be able to rent it out as a luxury apartment.
It's definitely something that has us worried in our industry, and I know that the Mass Association of Realtors is very, very vocal in speaking out, and I think that we will be as well in the coming months, because we want people to know before they vote. There was a poll taken, and 63% of people in Massachusetts said that they would support this rent control law, but we know that most people don't have all of the facts, so we just want to spread them.
Like, I'll be honest, I pay attention to politics and I go through my ballot initiatives, but a lot of times I don't go through them until a week or two before the election.
The day before for me.
I consider myself well-informed, but I'm not even what I would consider when I look at somebody else and say they're well-informed.
Right.
So I know most of the time when you're going in, you're voting on these things.
Right.
If I don't understand it and I don't know the answer to it, I'm going to vote no, or I'm not going to answer it at all. I know if they really want you to push something through, they'll word that so that it seems like it's doing X, but it's not.
Yeah, it's tricky. And there will be commercials that will be emotional and, talk to the lack of affordability. And it's true. We don't argue with the fact that we've got a lack of affordability. We just believe that we're going to exacerbate the problem instead of solve it.
Now, is there anything that the legislators can do? So it's a ballot initiative. I know that ballot initiatives don't have an immense amount of power in Massachusetts, but they do have some.
Right. So there have been enough signatures, more than enough signatures, to go to the next step. And my understanding is that right now it is with legislators and they're looking at it. So they could possibly decide to change the ballot somewhat, change the question. I don't know. But it is looking very likely that we're going to see it in November.